I'm very excited to introduce to you resource persons who are in the persons of Mr. Harry M. Korleson and then Ms. Gifty Okyere. I'd like to share briefly about our first speaker, which is in the person of Mr. Harry Korleson. He'll be addressing the theme Advancing Neurodiversity and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Korleson is an applied behavior therapist with 6 years experience. He has previously worked as a lead therapist at the Terra Kids Ghana and collaborated with Autism Compassion Africa and Mind Bridge Learning Center as a temporary therapist. Currently, he works as a freelance therapist supporting children with autism and related disorders. Education-wise, he is currently pursuing an MPhil in developmental psychology at the University of Ghana. While his primary expertise is in applied behavior therapy, and so I'll take that again. Whilst his specialty is applied behavior analysis therapy, he is also familiar with concepts in speech therapy, occupational therapy, and other autism interventions. His passion is helping children and individuals with autism. And again, he's happy seeing and helping children and individuals with autism thrive. On this note, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Mr. Harry Korleson, who will be taking us through the theme, Advancing Neurodiversity and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Councillor Korleson, Mr. Korleson, I'm happy to have you. And this tonight's session is brought to you by Purple Wellbeing Show in collaboration with Ghana Psychological Association, the Para and Lay Division. We are grateful to have you here. Mr. Korleson, I'm sorry, Mr. Korleson, please proceed with your presentation. Take us through.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. A very good evening to you all. I'm really honored to be here and grateful to be part of this conversation. As being introduced, I'm Harry Korleson, an ABA therapist with a passion of helping children and adults on the spectrum and any other neurodevelopmental condition. So today, as been introduced again, I'll be addressing the theme for the World Autism Day, which is Advancing Neurodiversity and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, otherwise known as the SDG. Please, can I share my screen?
Sure, Mr. Korleson, you can.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, please, can you see my screen?
Yes, please, Mr. Korleson, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's the theme for the World Autism Day, advancing neurodiversity and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as I said earlier on, otherwise known as the SDG. Now, as part of my introduction, the question I'm going to ask is, why is this a global issue and also a national issue too as well? A study by the UK Equitable Equality Act 2010 states that globally, neurodiverse individuals face social, educational, and as well as economic barriers. And these barriers, one way or the other, prevents them from contributing their full potential or participating in the society. And when this barrier occurs, we could attest to the fact that based on the prevalence data from the CDCP, that's the Center for Disease Control 2023, it states that the prevalence for autism and any other, particularly autism, is 1 in every 36 children. So if we have 1 in every 36 children, then you should know how this could affect the KPI and as well as the productivity of the nation. And this is where SDG comes in, the Sustainable Development Goals comes in. It comes in with a framework to address these inequalities and promote inclusion. There is also a national issue that is in Ghana where stigma, loss of inclusive education, and as well as lack of trained professionals, it becomes a national issue, a major challenge in the country. Please, I'll move on to my next slide. Can we all see it?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Korleson, we can see.
okay, then I can go ahead then. Okay, thank you so much. So this is my outline. So I'm going to speak, that's the introduction. Then we take the neurodiversity. We look at challenges faced by neurodivergent individuals. We look at SDGs. We look at neurodiversity and SDGs, how they connect, how they intersect. Then we look at the call to action. Then I end at my conclusion. Now I have this picture here, which comes with a statement that advancing neurodiversity is essential for equitable system. Now, on the picture we have on our screen here, we have the first picture, which is equality, and we have the next picture, which is equity. Now, when it comes to neurodiversity, there is something that should reign. One of the main things that should reign is equity, not equality. Now, looking at the picture for equality, you could see they are all provided equal opportunities. The same frame, the same frame, the same frame. Yet, the one who is disadvantaged, which is the short man, still can't watch that baseball activity there. Now, in the equity side of the picture, you could see that the frame, which is the stand or the support, is taken from the tall person and given to the short person. Now, in this case, all the three of them could witness or watch the baseball there, and that is about equity. Equity means that what can I do? What extra thing can I do to help neurodivergent individuals strive as equal as typical children? And that is just another introduction. Now, a study by, pardon me, let me take this thing off my screen. I don't know where to put it. Okay, here. Okay, now a study by Chapman 2020 states that neurodiversity is a term that recognizes and respects neurological differences as a natural and valuable form of human diversity. So what this means that just as you recognize and respect different races, different ethnic group, different cultural background, in the same and similar vein, neurodiversity says that if you meet people with different, let me use this term, wiring of brain, then you should know that they are just different human beings. Just don't dwell on it as deficits, dwell on their strength. And that's what Chapman says. And he says here that it includes, let me move this one to here. It says it includes individuals with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and other neurodevelopmental condition. And it says it encourages us to focus on the strengths rather than the deficit. So it promotes a shift from looking at the condition as a deficit or a disorder to looking at it as a difference and dwelling upon the strengths. And these are studies that have been done worldwide. And it says studies typically estimate that approximately 15 to 20% of the population worldwide is neurodivergent. And if 15 to 20% of the population nation worldwide is neurodivergent, if they are not trained with the needed skill, then we could tell for the fact how the country's productivity could reduce. And when they are trained, it could help the country or the nation at large increase its productivity. Oh, okay. So that's my introduction, which I said earlier on. I've said it already. So let's move on to the next one. So neurodiversity, I also explain it in my introduction with the same key terms here. Here it says it promotes a shift in mindset from viewing these conditions as deficit. That's what neurodivergence says, or neurodiversity, to recognizing them as differences with unique strengths. And now let's look at the next topic. That's the challenges faced by neurodivergent individuals. There are so many challenges that they face. We have one, limited access to inclusive educations. And one of the main subtopic under it is many schools lack trained teachers and supportive environment. We can tell of the fact that many schools, especially teachers, they are not trained enough to understand the communication, to understand who neurodivergent individuals are. So most of them resort to the traditional way of handling neurodivergent individuals. That's by using any form of punishment. That's by being so harsh upon them. And most of the times, to these schools that we have, not only in Ghana but in the nation at large, I had a privilege to listen to a webinar by the World Autism something, and a lady from Australia made one statement that as part of their ministries, like how we have here in Ghana, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Communication, she said that as part of their ministry in Australia, they have Ministry of Autism. And what this Ministry of Autism does is that as part of their projects in 2024 and 2025, what they are doing this is that in every public school, there's a trained teacher who is specialized in handling persons living with autism. And it's something very good that we could copy from. So we lack trained teachers, we lack the supportive environment. Sometimes you get to a place, these are some of the problems, the challenges. You get to a place, the class is so much overcrowded, and neurodivergent individuals, not to enter into their symptoms, we know most of them comes with comorbid. Some of them may be hypersensitive. When I say hypersensitive to sound, it means their senses to sound is so high that a little sound that comes or a little noise that comes will bring frustration and will bring distress in their life. The class is so overcrowded, so when they are in the class, it's very difficult for them to understand. And most of the schools too are not that flexible to massage their policies. Speaking out of experience, I had a privilege to provide a therapy for one client in one of the schools in East Legon. Yeah, it's a big school per se. That's why they didn't want to massage their policies, because they have most of the celebrities there. And one of the things that we were asking them was the fact that, oh, can we get a separate room to have a pull-out session? That as much as we are doing classroom facilitations, we would desire to have a separate room where we could take the child in. ABA, we believe in one-on-one therapy, where we could take the child there and have a one-on-one therapy with the child. And they weren't that welcome, though it's a big school, but at the end they accepted it after months of speaking with them, having meeting with them. They accepted it, and they could attest to the fact that that pull-out session we had with the child has helped the child gain many skills. Another challenge that they face, neurodivergent individual faces, barriers in healthcare and employment. So you get to the healthcare providers, which is a major challenge in the nation, Ghana, and at large the world. Most doctors, most nurses, most healthcare providers are not being trained enough. They've not received the specialized training when it comes to handling neurodivergent individuals. And this could lead to misdiagnosis. That is, if they could see, for example, maybe a child with sensory sensitivity problem, they could misdiagnose it as a child is having a behavior problem. Again, I'll speak out of experience because I like taking data or doing case study. One woman I met, a client I met, and out of asking a client a question, why are you now seeking the behavioral therapy, or why are you now seeking a therapy for your child now that your child is 8 years? Why are you now seeking the child? Not to disregard any work, but we know every work has their own field. A field for speech therapists should be for the speech therapist. One for ABA should be for the ABA, and other one, there are times that will come together, then will work. And what she said was the fact that the doctor asked her to go and see the speech therapist. And for years, she has been seeing the speech therapist, not knowing the underlying condition there is a behavior issue that needs to be handled. So, because they lack these kind of specialized training, sometimes instead of the doctors telling you to go and see a neuropediatrician, they may tell you go and see a pediatrician. You go and see a pediatrician. By the time you go and see the neuropediatrician, time is far more gone. And we know that in the world of autism treatment, early interventions, EIBI, early intensive behavior interventions, could help improve the outcome of the neurodivergent individual. So by the time you see the pediatrician, you go to a neuropediatrician, time is far more gone. So few providers understand the neurodivergent needs. And another one too is that in this country, I think last year, Mission Pediatrics, is it Dr. Maribel? I think her company did, what do we call it? Data. They collected the data in Ghana to know the number of allied health professionals. When I say allied health professional, I'm referring to the speech therapists, occupational ABA, to know the number of them in the various regions. And one shocking one, which I could still remember up till now, is that they said in Sunyani, they only have one therapist, the whole of Sunyani, only one therapist, which is a speech therapist. And some parts of the northern region, there are no therapists. And it's only in Greater Accra that you could see this overcrowded therapist here, okay? So that's as part of the healthcare. And when it comes to the employment, it says workplace discrimination or lack of accommodation. Now, another study which I forgot to reference it here is that the study that up to from 85 to 90% of neurodivergent individuals are unemployed. 85 to 90% of them and are unemployed. And we are being told from the data I brought earlier on that 15 to 20% of them make up the populations of the world. So if about 85 of them are unemployed, what are we building them for? What is the country, what productivity, what will be our productivity rate? What would the country be able to produce? So these are some of the things that we need to look at. Sometimes to the interviews that they go through, the interview, sometimes you may go for interview, they'll ask you a question, you ask yourself that if there is a neurodivergent individual here, will they be able to answer the same question that they are being asked? Are you getting? And sometimes the cost to involve neurodivergent individuals, they have to go with other therapy or other care provider or other caregiver, and there is some cost involved. The workplace too, maybe it's not accommodative enough for the neurodivergent individuals, those of them who are hypersensitive and those of them who are hyposensitive. It may not be accommodative enough for them. Then another challenge we have, which is another issue here in Ghana, is stigma and discrimination. Talking about a negative attitude or discriminations people have against a particular group of people. We have the cultural misconceptions. Most people see this disease as being a spiritual cause, like it's a curse from God based on how maybe one of the parents live their life during their childhood stage, their emerging adulthood stage, or any other stage of their life. They may see it as a curse. And another one which they say doesn't document is that most people see autism or neurodivergence, diversity or neurodivergence as something for the rich. That it only happens to the rich. This, I think, research has not documented it yet, but it's in the mouth of people, especially Ghanaians. That is what they say. Oh, autism is just for the rich. Have you ever seen a poor person suffering from autism? There are poor people suffering from autism, but because of the stigma, because of the money, they can't bring them out. The cost involved, they can't go for that service. So they rather prefer to keep them in their houses, do whatever they want to do to them there. You could visit towns like Jamestown, visit those towns, and you will see most of them. And now we have the social exclusion, where most of them decide to hide their children in their rooms based on the negative stereotypes. And these are some of the challenges that neurodivergent individuals, particularly persons living with autism, go through. Now, let's look at what SDGs are. That's Sustainable Development Goals. What are they? Now, they are 17 in number. It was established by UN, by their General Assembly in 2015. While gathering this data, I was so surprised that since 2015, and we are in 2025, and this agenda ends by 2030. We only have 5 more years for this neurodiversity and UN Sustainable Development Goals to um, be achieved. We only have 5 more years, 10 years gone already. And what is the aim of the SDG? Now, what it means here, the aim is to end poverty, protect the planet, and promote peace and well-being by 2030. 5 more years to go. And at the call of the SDG, it says that leaving no one behind. In our autism setting, it means inclusive development is central to all. And that is what SDG says. Inclusive development is central to all. In my introduction, I told you that these challenges which neurodivergent individuals face socially, educationally, economically, SDG comes in to provide a framework to address all of these challenges and promote inclusion. And that is what SDG is, 17 in numbers, established in 2015. The agenda ends by 2030. We have 5 more years. The agenda is to end poverty, protect the planet, promote peace and well-being. And at the core of it, the center, the main idea is inclusive for all, or inclusive development is the central. No one should be left behind. Now, this is just the picture of the SDG. Now, let's move on to how we could merge neurodiversity and the SDG. How do they intersect? Now, we have neurodiversity and SDG 3, that is good health and well-being. Earlier on, I said that this SDG provides a framework to address these inequalities. Now, what are some of the problems and how will this SDG 3 address this problem? Now, some of the problem is that we have many neurodivergent individuals face inaccessible or improper health care or inappropriate health care. What it means is inaccessible. We all know the cost involved in going for services like the intervention services is very high. Probably it could be due to the market value for it. And other reason could be is that you may need a speech therapist, you may need an occupational therapist, you may need a behavior therapist. Sometimes you may need an educationist, a special ed, as part of your client's services. You may need so many people, even a medical doctor, to look at the biological part of it. So the services are very, very much expensive. So most of them end up not being able to access appropriate healthcare. And there is a shortage of trained professionals who understand neurodevelopment. It's a major challenge in this country and the world at large that most doctors don't have the specialized skills in handling neurodivergent individuals. Imagine you meeting an adult who is sitting before the doctor and can't communicate their needs. If the doctor is not trained in this field, how would the doctor be able to diagnose and how would the doctor be able to treat? So most at times it ends up in misdiagnosis. Most at times it ends up in they providing the wrong treatment for the individuals. Not only to the doctors and nurses. Sometimes I've gotten the opportunity to follow most of them. I follow one of my clients to the hospital. I realized that this client of mine is always afraid of the string. And I asked the parents, why is this client afraid of the string? And the story that was told was that when he was young, because the doctors didn't have enough knowledge about who he was, they scared him with the string. Kotanasi here, else I'll just use this thing on you. So up till now, he's afraid. So the last time he visited the doctor, I had to follow him there. and explain everything to the doctor, meeting the ENT or something, this year and something. I had to explain it to the doctor, and I had to be there. I had to follow another person to the dentist just to check their teeth for them, and it was another thing altogether. So that's shortage of trained professionals. Now, what is the solution? What solution? Now, what framework will SDG Good Health provide to address these inequalities? Now, it promotes inclusive. That's the central, the core goal. No one is left behind. So inclusive and neurodiversity informed health services. We need to raise more awareness. And another study which I refused to, I forgot to bring it here, is the fact that most neurodivergent individuals are at a high risk of facing mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, trauma. So most of these mental health services must be tailored to address their needs. And early diagnosis too is very, very much important because it can improve the outcome. And improving the outcome, then which means the country or maybe the world at large must provide early screening assessment tools. And an article I read states that from 18 months to the 22nd month, the neurodiversity could be identified or could be diagnosed. And another study too I read says that even when the baby is in your womb, there are now machines that could identify and test that, look, is this person on the spectrum, or this person is not on the spectrum. So there are early diagnostic screening tools that could help diagnose the child early, and when they are diagnosed early, they receive early interventions and ends up improving their treatment outcome. Okay, then we have the last one. We have the lifelong support. It's going to be a lifelong support. The occupational therapist, speech therapist, everybody's going to come on. They are not going to be left on the way. That's their middle childhood, their adult age, a lifelong support from them. And we can do this by including the community members, both parents, the community, raising more awareness. And one thing that I will say in the subsequent slides, which I'll say it here, is that it's also good when raising more awareness that we normally should raise the awareness through the mouth of the neurodivergent individuals. Maybe the question you ask me is that, can they communicate? There are some who can communicate. And I was able to explain to some parents how neurodivergent individual feels based on my experience. I met two different people, one client who I met somewhat Manette there, and the client used to spit on people's faces. When you are sitting down, you can just spit on your face. So one day, through interaction, I decided not to say anything. I just asked him, why do you do this? And one thing he just told me was the fact that, look, I can't control it. And you know, Ray said normally tells us about impulsivity. When the thing comes, they can't control it. And I was able to explain to some family, which strengthened their family support group to help their child, that look, they are guns. So they were like, oh, I think this child intentionally does what he's doing. A geography on the field, that's in my local parlance. He intentionally does what he's doing. I explained to them, though he may know that, okay, I'm going to do this, but the ability for him to control is what he can do. So through these behavior intervention services, we are going to teach him coping mechanisms or strategies for him to be able to control these edges as and when they come. Okay, so that's SDG 3, that's good health and well-being. Now let's go to SDG 4, which talks about quality education. Quality education. Some of the problems we have with these educational settings is that most of the schools, as I said earlier on, are not so flexible to massage their policies. Was it a statement, borrowing a statement from one person? I couldn't get the source for it, but the person says something that most people tend to empathize with physical ailments, but when it comes to mental ailments, they ridicule them. I don't know whether you've come across that statement before. When it comes to physical ailments, pardon my language, like amputee, visual impairments, and those things, they empathize with them. So you could even see for yourself that when it comes to the persons with disability, it's more, let me say it favors the with physical ailment than people with mental ailments. And that is how the school system has been structured. People with physical ailments are more accommodated, they are accepted. But when it comes to mental ailments, the school is not that flexible to accept them. So this happens to be some of our problems. And that's another problem that we have when it comes to quality education, is that the teachers are not trained enough to handle neurodivergent individuals. Now, what is the way forward? The way forward is to promote inclusive classrooms. Now, inclusive classroom is to accept everyone. Now, in accepting everyone, it's either you take a step forward. What can we do to accommodate this person? Just as I said earlier on, that the school I visited, they weren't that ready to accept my proposal, but later they accepted it. They gave me a nice cubicle furnished with a POP, where even the child wants to throw tantrum, the child will not hurt his or herself, and that was very okay. Other schools that you get to have sensory room, and other schools that you get, they're only 50 in class. That is what they could provide. I'm not saying the government school is not good. It's also good. That is what you could have. So that's inclusive classroom. Then adapted curricula to support diverse learners. How can we differentiate the learning curricula? I've been to schools again. I'll speak out of experience again. I've been to schools where a teacher teaches both classes, and both classes, one class has a child living with autism, and that class also has a child living with autism, and the teacher is teaching, and the teacher didn't even differentiate his notes. And sometimes when I come and I meet them, I'm so surprised. Like, you have two strong people in your class and you didn't differentiate your notes. What would the differentiation take? Sometimes you know, just add a little pictures to it and we are good to go. Just add some videos. Yeah, I think one school in East Legon is doing that. The teacher will stand and teach. Then after they have the video, so they teach through auditory or something. Then they have the visual, that's through the pictures, and they have the auditory visual, that's through videos and words. So with that, other neurodivergent individuals are able to adapt and learn more. The key thing here, the key word which I said earlier on, is equity, not equality. Equality here may end at the point where we provide all of them the opportunity. Hey, all of you enter into the class. You said you want the class, right? Go into the class. That's equality. Now, equity takes a step forward. What can I do to help these neurodivergent individuals strive as equal as this typical child there? And that is equity, and that is what we are looking at. So adapting the curricula to support diverse needs. And the next one, we provide teacher training on neurodiversity and inclusive teaching strategy. Not to compare Ghana to Australia, where they have Ministry of Autism, but here policies can be made where teachers should be trained. So we don't resort to the traditional way of helping children. That's the disciplinary way, disciplining them, giving them time out, asking the child to share books, walk around the class. All of these things will not help the neurodivergent individual strive appropriately in the class. So we need to let them receive the appropriate training, because it's more of autism, particularly autism, though I'm talking about neurodivergent, but it's more of autism. I would prefer to separate it from special ed. That is good for teachers, even the special educational teachers, to receive more training in handling autistic children. Then the next one is to implement an individualized educational plan or individualized education plan. This is something that not all schools in Ghana, that's it. Just a few, if I'm to mention, but I may not mention the names of the school I've attended to, just a few. That's that. And this individualized educational plan is another differentiation strategy. And this plan is not only done by the therapist or the speech therapist, it is done in collaboration with the occupational therapist. Every support giver around the child must come together. The parents will give their inputs, educationists will give their input, therapists, speech therapists, occupational therapists. Everyone gives their input to develop this individualized educational plan, and at the long run could help the child strive very well as the typical children. Then the next one I'm going to move on is neurodiversity and SDG 8, that's decent work and economic growth. I said earlier on that one study I found states that up to 85%, 85 to 90% of neurodivergent individuals are unemployed. Now, high unemployment among autistic and neurodivergent individuals. Now, this could be due to stigma, lack of understanding, and inaccessible workplaces. Inaccessible workplaces. There is a last point which when I get there, maybe we may applaud some people doing it. They are doing so well. So high unemployment rate. Some of the works we have, they find it very difficult to employ neurodivergent individual, neurodivergent adults. And so there is one center in Ghana, which is AACT. That's is it Autism Awareness Care Training, and they are doing so well. And the last time I visited them on a case study, I realized that, oh wow, they are training them vocationally, because when they are done, they grow it from emerging adults to adults. What can they do to support them? Maybe their primary caregiver, which is their mother, their father, may age and may not be able to bring the money. What can they also do? And this is what they are doing. And they are doing that to solve the high unemployment rate. But currently, I think last time I saw this woman, if given the opportunity, is it Clicks Africa? Three of them. I don't know whether I know one is from Arts, but the two working at Kimpiski, and that's so wonderful just to address the unemployment rate in Ghana. And sometimes due to stigma, parents rather keep their children in their house, and the lack of understanding that employees have, they don't want to employ people. And next one is this need for inclusive hiring practices. This has got me thinking always that you going for a scholarship at the Hungary embassy, the questions that you'll be asked, you ask yourself that if there is a neurodivergent individual there, would they be able to answer such questions? However, the main thing here is that they need to focus on the strengths, provide clear communication, and flexible workplaces. Flexible workplaces. What can we do to reduce the cost? Because some of these neurodivergent individuals will go to the workplaces together with their primary caregiver. The primary caregiver has to be paid. And when they are going, and the neurodivergent individuals, some employees are so hard to the extent that they just pay them as low as 300 cedis. That 300 is that you are paying the neurodivergent individual. How would the neurodivergent individual pay the caregiver? So that one becomes a cost on their primary caregiver, which is their parents. So we need to have an inclusive hiring practices. And the last one, which we have there, which is another solution, is that invest in vocational training and support entrepreneurship. Just as I said about that center, engaging them in the vocational training, that beads making, kente weaving, and that's so nice. That's so nice. So by the time most of them, I know based on the data I took from them, they take from 9 years. Children may graduate from one center, is it a Wawa 2 or something, then get to their center by the age of 9, then they take them, then they prepare them for the outside world. And that's so wonderful. Most of them, when you go there, could do beads making, the sleepers. Most of them could do kente weaving, and that is very important. It says help neurodivergent individuals develop skills and create opportunity, and that has been one of the major calls for adults, people transitioning to the adulthood stage. That what skill now when they get to adolescence, to emerging adult, those stage now we should look at building a skill. We should look at building a skill, and looking at building a skill, what can a child do? So you looking at a child from their childhood stage, early childhood, through to their middle childhood, to their late childhood stage. You need to identify some skills that a child could do well. Currently, I have one child who told me that he wants to be a public speaker, and he's very good with the mic. When he holds the mic right now, he could get everyone amused. Everyone will start clapping because he knows how to catch the crowd. So these are some of the things that we must do, developing of skills. Then I have the next one, how neurodiversity intersects with SDG. One, to reduce inequalities. Inequalities, what it says here is that to reduce and social exclusion. Listen, is my internet back? Hello? Oh.
Yes, it's back, and we can hear you now.
So another thing is to end social exclusion and discrimination against neurodivergent individuals. So anything that excludes them, the discrimination, we need to end that. And the next one that we need to do is to ensure equal access to education, employment, healthcare, which I said earlier on about it, is that we need to promote awareness and advocacy to change public attitude and reduce stigma. And my little advice here is that when doing it, is best we go with the neurodivergent individuals. I said it earlier on, those of them that could talk, let them talk. There's a statement that the neurodivergent community are making that it says that nothing about us without us. So if you want to say something about them, then you must include them. Without them on the field, then please say nothing about them. And a statement by Taran Paul Marty says that not speaking doesn't mean not thinking. Not expressing doesn't mean not feeling. Not talking doesn't mean not having anything to say. They have something to say. So it's always best we go with them. Even when they say hi, the people could see them, then they could communicate what they have to communicate through their facial expression, their gestures, and itself. So in promoting this awareness and advocacy to change public attitude and reduce the stigma, I would advise that we go to the field with them. And the last SDG that intersects with neurodiversity is peace, justice, and strong institutions. That's SDG 16. I said there are 17 in number. Now we have the first one, to develop and implement inclusive policy framework. There is policy that guides generally people or persons with disability. I said earlier on that in my own stance, I feel these policies are more favorable to people with physical ailment than people with mental ailments. So we need to develop and implement inclusive policies, and that inclusive policy should be to neurodivergent individuals, particularly persons living with autism. And the next thing we need to do is to strengthen the legal protection and enforce the rights of neurodivergent individuals. There should be laws that should guide inclusive inclusion in schools, inclusion in healthcare. They must gain the same opportunity, have the same opportunity we are having when it comes to school, have the same opportunity we are having when it comes to healthcare services. And we need to also massage the policy a bit to include specific, I'm using the word specific policies for neurodivergent individual. And the final one I would like to say is to encourage meaningful participation in decision-making and community life. As I said earlier on, we must include them. Let's include them in the decision-making. What they are saying is that nothing about us without us. We must include them in the decision-making process. And the call to action: educators must embrace inclusive teaching practices and flexible learning. That is what educators must do. Embrace inclusive teaching practices. Let's train the teachers. Let's have flexible learning practices. Then the employers, those of them are the workplaces, what should they do? They must create neurodiverse friendly workplaces and provide that must promote laws and policies that support, must challenge stigma and at every level that impacts every level if we want to meet global development needs. Then when all voices are heard, the world moves forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Korleson. Thank you so much, Mr.
You're
Korleson,
welcome.
for the insightful presentation. Please, any questions before we move to the second presentation? Any questions? Hey, Mr. Champon, your mic has been unmuted. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
No, sorry.
All right. And so, thank you so very much. Please go on, Mr. Gio.
Yes. So, my question is, I understand that um, individuals, or let's say children who um, have issues, right? Or let's say individuals who face things like this. Sometimes the parent um, would have to spend quite an amount of money to be able to get a child to do things that maybe the ordinary child may be able to do. You need a speech therapist. You need a support system, like a full support system. If the child is to go to school, you are going to need a special teacher, or even if it's the normal school teacher who is going to take care of your son, even in that way, you still have to incur an extra cost, right? So, what is available for individuals who don't have the money for their awards to be able to go through all this?
So, Ms. Sama, can I go ahead?
Yes, please, you can. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for your question. There's a major issue in Ghana. However, you see, unlike the Ghanaian setting, going to America where there are insurances that covers where there are insurance. Sorry, there's a call coming. Children living with autism in Ghana, there's none. There's nothing like that. Please excuse me. Let me. I want to answer this, but please excuse me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, am I audible?
Okay. So, sorry, I've not answered the question.
Oh, okay.
So,
So please, when you finish, then we move to the next presentation.
okay. So
Thank
sorry. So,
you.
in Ghana, nothing of such is here. However, I learned there are disability funds that the government normally gives to people living on the spectrum or people with disability. But this is the case that we are in Ghana and we know how difficult it is for you to get such funds. It's very difficult. So, and also speaking, most of the
Okay, so since we,
most of the facilities that we have
okay,
are NGOs. Sorry, most of the facilities that we have in Ghana too are NGOs, unless you want to go with a freelance. That's why it's very expensive. Nevertheless, even the NGOs is very expensive to some point. But to some companies, like not to mention their names, they are also affordable. However, if you want to go for the expensive one, you go. That is why we are creating awareness that the government will also come and do something about it. I learned about a country, UK, that's Scotland specifically. They don't pay anything. So they are mostly against behavior technicians. They like the speech therapists, occupational therapists. It's free for them. Everything is free. So most of the Ghanaians there, because they are providing such therapy for them, they are okay. They're living there nicely. But this is the case that this is the country that we are. We pray that our voices will be heard, that the government will also do something. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Korleson, for the insightful presentation. We are very grateful. And so please, I'd like to announce that you either leave your questions in the chat box or you hold on tight to it. We'll get to that session where we'll take questions and have our resource persons respond to your questions, please. I'm very grateful for your time as well. And so next, we have Ms. Gifty Okyere. So Ms. Gifty Okyere is an occupational, please a moment. Okay, okay. So I got it now. Okay, so Ms. Gifty Okyere, she is an occupational therapist. She's also an educational psychologist and an educator. She will be taking us through autism in adults. And so on this note, I'd like to invite our second resource person in the who is Ms. Gifty Okyere to take us through the autism in adults. Ms. Gifty, please, are you there? Are you ready for us?
Yes, I'm here, Miss. I'm
Okay,
here.
so thank you very much.
Good
And
evening,
again,
everybody.
good evening. And again, I'd like to remind us that this is a collaboration between Pepper Wellbeing Show and Ghana Psychological Association. And I would as well like to say thank you to our supporters, that is Ghana Movement Commission. That's Ghana Commission Movement of Ghana. I'm sorry, that is Great Commission Movements of Ghana. I take that again. I'd like to appreciate our supporters. That includes the Great Commission Movement of Ghana, Alpha Wave Consult, and House of EBQ. Thank you so much for supporting us. And again, we appreciate Ghana Psychological Association's collaboration to have this come off. Thank you very much. Ms. Gifty Okyere, please proceed with your presentation.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Good evening once again. And Mr. Korleson, good job. I really loved your presentation. Okay, so I'll also take it from here. Do you mind sharing this one for me?
Very well. Please, a moment. I'll do so.
Thank you. Okay, so as Miss Hammer introduced, and I'm Miss Gifty. I'm an occupational therapist for kids with autism. I'm an educationist, Yeah, I really love to be around children and work with them in every aspect of their lives. Hold on a moment. If possible, let me try from my end. Oh, okay. Thank you, Ms. Amma. I would like we move straight to the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So first, we're going to look at what we're going to really talk about on autism in adults, but then we'll still go back on what autism is. We're not going to spend much time because we've discussed in our previous meetings, and we look at autism in adults versus children. We're going to look at some common traits in autistic adults. We look at some of the challenges they face. Some of the challenges they face, their strengths and abilities, diagnosis and self-identification. We're going to look at some of the supports we can give them, and then the importance of accepting over our just awareness, and then call to action. All right, Emma, let's move on. So when we say what autism is, what is autism? Previously, it wasn't in existence. Autism was there, but then it wasn't to the mind of people. So it was thought to be a childhood schizophrenia. It's a type of mental illness that makes it hard for people to think clearly or know what's real and then act normally. So that was originally what they thought autism was about. But then later in the 1940s and 1970s, that was when it was discovered that there's something called autism and it was recognized. Okay. So when we say autism, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects people's communication and how they... Hi.
Voice goes
Yes, Mr.
off a bit. You
It
see?
goes and comes.
Yes, please. Looks like
Okay,
you're a bit far away from the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just... Okay, hello.
Yes, please.
Miss Amma, is this better?
This is much better.
Okay. All right. Then let's proceed. So, as I said, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects people, how people communicate and interact with others. So you can see certain signs as delayed in speech. You can see difficulty in social interactions. There's difficulties when it comes to changing routine. They don't know how to take it, and then they have sensorial issues, repetitive behaviors, among other symptoms. Okay. It's normally referred to as autism spectrum disorder because it differs from every individual. In some people, it's very mild. In others, it's more severe, and then the impact is also significant. So you don't really say it's the same for all of them. It's different in every individual as it appears. And then also we have to know that it's lifelong. It's not something that you discover in childhood and it's like there's a cure that at the end of the day, it's gone. It's lifelong. So as Mr. Korleson said, though, that you need support as the years goes by. Okay. Ms. Amma, let's continue. Ms. Amma, can we please move to the next slide?
Yes, please. I've just done that. Is it that the one that started?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, please. I want the adults versus children. Thank you. So, as I said, autism is lifelong and it's a neurodevelopmental disease, but conditions. So, but then how it presents itself in childhood and in adults is quite different. You know, at the beginning of when they discovered, research was made on kids, only kids. Adults were not considered. So most of them were not diagnosed for you to know that, oh, this person is autistic or not. It was research on just children. So we are going to look at some of the factors that can influence the differences in them when it comes to children, when it comes to adults. In case, okay, let's proceed. So we can have diagnostic visibility. In children, you can see signs and that are more identified, and then you can see them in every stage of development. So you can seek help for them very quick. But then when it comes to adults, they were never diagnosed, as I said. And then also Some will not have theirs heightened, so their symptoms are very mild, so you're not able to tell what actually it is. And then since they are adults, they're able to mask it. When we say mask it, they cover up their symptoms that you will not be able to know until they go into depression or there's burnout. That's when they have to seek for help. And then we come to social differences. Kids may show difficulty in group play and taking turns as they grow up. So caregivers will be able to know, oh, this child, when it comes to play, there's a little issues when it comes to their behavior between turns, so peer play, sometimes isolate themselves and all. So then you're able to give them help. But then adults may struggle maintaining friendship, for instance. When it comes to adults, they struggle and it's navigate in the workplace or manage romantic relationships. So everything that goes on, they internalize it, which makes the signs very less visible for us to know that, oh, this person has autism. Sometimes they'll even avoid social situations altogether. If there's a social function, they will prefer not to go. They'll just stay in their house, prevent any meltdowns within them. And then when it comes to communication styles, for instance, kids may have delayed speech or unusual language patterns. We have something called echolalia, where they repeat anything you say. So what is your name? It's what is your name? And then how are you? It's how are you? That is in children. But then in adults, some adults can have fluent speech, but then will face difficulties in social cues, like reading facial expressions and the tone, their body languages. When it comes to communications, they might interrupt. And then you find them talking all about themselves and even go deep as telling about their family histories and all. That's which can help us know that this person has a little bit of an autism. So we go to behavioral patterns. Children will behave in repetitive play, like they'll clap their hands, some make repetitive noises, some will spin, some will line up toys as they play. Particularly if it's cars, they will keep lining them up in particular ways, in a particular way, and never stop. If they finish with it, they will go back and do the same thing over and over again. But then when it comes to adults who is autistic, they steam. They also steam as in the repetitive behavior is called steaming. Kids also steam. The steaming has to do with repetitive behaviors. Yes, the term given to repetitive behaviors. So tapping. So since they are adults and they were not diagnosed and they learn to mask, they tap, but then in a subtle way. If it's leg shaking, they do it in a way that you won't see, but then they do it, especially when they are nervous. Okay. Ms. Amakani, let's move on. Ms. Ama.
Yes, please. It's been done.
Yeah, and we are moving on, please.
Yes, we're on the next page.
Thank you.
Yes, we're on the next page.
Yes, we are on the next page. So we are going to one factor which causes a difference in their diagnosis in children and then in adults. So for you to know this adult has autism, one factor is coping mechanism. And then as a kid in children, for instance, their behaviors are more open. They don't feel tight because as children, they don't know social norms to know that, oh, I'm in a group of people, so let me mask this behavior. So if they feel like the environment is so overwhelming for them, they just melt down or throw tantrums. And then if it's something that continues over and over and frequently, you see that it brings the attention of caregivers for them to seek for help. But then in adults, for instance, they experience meltdown also or shutdown, but then they internalize everything. So at the end of the day, you see them withdrawing in case they are socially overwhelmed. You see them withdraw from the public. They would stay in the house for quite some time without wanting to go out. Yeah. And then we come to emotional expression. So it's just like the coping mechanism, similar. So the kids will melt down or throw tantrums and all. But then when it comes to adults, for instance, as I said, they withdraw from the public. Some will turn off their phones so not to receive calls. It's kind of a shutdown for them. They need to reboot because they are covered up so much that they are burned out. Sometimes they dissociate themselves in conversations, like stay in the blank. As you talk to them, you see them stay in the blank. And then when they remember and come back, they don't remember anything that you said. You ask them, what did I say in this period of time? They were not there. Their mind was not there. And then they can have something we call autopilot, where they can start a particular chore like cleaning and clean, and then later snap back and don't know how and when and everything began and ended. And then we move to support system. When it comes to kids, they have structured support system. As we said, the research was based more on them, so strategies and were brought up for them. So they all have the structure laid down for them: advocacy, individual plan, how to draw, and all for them is set. But then when it comes to the adults, they were not the focus. So support system is really minimal. So as Mr. Korleson said, even when it comes to healthcare, it's really tedious assessing, as doctors were not trained or are not trained to care for their needs. And then when we come to gender differences, it's research that girls must better be able to cover up their traits at younger ages. So it's hard for you to tell whether they are autistic or not. But when it comes to boys, boys are very active and boisterous, so fishing them out is very quick. Yeah. All right, Miss Amma, let's move on. So we are moving to common traits in autistic adults. Okay. So while autistic adults are unique, there are some common traits that can be observed in them. Remember, we said earlier that it's a spectrum. So these traits might vary in every individual because of something like personality. So in my research, it said that an introvert plus autism will bring about complete withdrawal. So if an adult is an introvert and autistic, that person will tend to withdraw and prefer silence. But then if it's the opposite for an extrovert plus autism, they like social interactions, but then may end up with a talk. They end up scripting. We have something we call scripting, where they copy particular way of communication. So that's what they go with it. Sometimes they have to rehearse the way they have to communicate with people before they do that. And then also the differences can be the environment. So if one was able to get supportive environments, then at least they make progress. But if not, it's the opposite. And then early diagnosis in life. So if an individual was able to be earlier diagnosed whilst they were young, they get the necessary help and support. And then as they grow, be able to manage and maneuver around life. But then if it's the other way around, then that's it. So we are looking at the common traits. One, we have social differences. Differences in social communication. So they prefer direct, honest communication and may struggle with small talk or social norms. So as neurotypical people who are not autistic, we call them the neurotypicals, who will just see a mate and say, hello, how are you? How are your kids? How is the family? Oh, I heard your mother is sick and all. An autistic adult, for instance, will not be able to follow such. They talk when they need to communicate. Like, I need to ask you something. So that's why they are talking to you. They talk when there's the need for that. And then also, they might find it challenging to read facial expressions, the tone of voice or body language. Also, when to speak or pause during conversations. As I said, they don't know how to take turns in conversations. So as you speak, you say that they take over and then talk all about themselves when they don't even realize it. And then in the course of interpreting sarcasm and jokes, it's very hard. They're unable to interpret or understand sarcasm. So they can be in a mess. You take a lady who has a messy hair and then see a friend say, "Oh, is your hair not looking pretty?" And they will say, "Thank you," not understanding the sarcasm of it. Yes. Now we move to the second one, sensorial sensitivity, which we have the hypersensitive and the hyposensitive. The hyper has to be over responsive, and then the hypo has to be the under response. When we talk of sensorial, has to do with the senses, the five senses, the sounds, touch, the smell, the taste, and then there's the sense of seeing. Yes. When it comes to sounds, they are very reactive. Some will react really to sounds. They can't really take loud noises in their environment. So it makes them very overwhelmed. There are some that might not react. As we said, is a spectrum. And then when it comes to tags, autistic adults might not be comfortable with tags on clothes, especially the ones at the back or probably the sides. It's quite uncomfortable, and then unexpected contacts makes them very uncomfortable. Certain smells and tastes, so they have frequent food aversions. So sometimes even certain foods they might not know they don't like until they taste. Or they might visit somebody's house and then you serve them a meal, the smell will just put them off. They themselves might not even know why. And then we have visual inputs like the lights and then patterns. Excessive patterns puts them off. Some cannot take on loud lights or lights that flicker. Ms. Amma, can you move on for me? Please give me the next slide. Okay. So another common trait is, can you go back? Strong need for routine. Yes, routine helps them create predictability and reduce anxiety. So autistic adults don't like unexpected changes in their plans. They don't like delays. They prefer that you tell them, "Oh, the party is at 6," and you should be aware that they are coming at 6. There's no in between. And then if you make plans with them, you have to stick with it because they include in their plans as well, and it cannot be changed with them. It's so hard to do that. So they create and follow strict routines to help them move about their daily life comfortably. And then the next common trait with them is they have deep focus on interests. Autistic adults have intense focused interests, sometimes called special interests. These interests ranges from hobbies to academics to subjects to technology, music, animals, or collecting specific items. When it comes to hobbies, you see them so engrossed. A person will be engrossed in drawing. And drawing specific something. It's not a drawing in general, but then a specific idea. Maybe a drawing on the ocean or plants. They stick to that. And then technology can be computer coding, hacking, robotics. If it's robotics, that's what they stick to, and their interest is there and they don't change. And then some who do collections will collect rocks, they will collect stamps, they will collect coins, some will collect maps. Now, all these interests are often source of joy to them, and then they become really good at it. It brings them joy and sense of mastery. They become really good at it. That any information you want to know about whatever they can give you. And then we come to the executive function differences. It refers to mental skills that help them plan, organize, and then time management for self-regulation. So they may struggle with starting or completing a task. An autistic adult may want to clean but never finish, because in the course of cleaning, they get to one spot that gets their attention and they stick to that and clean for quite a while. And by the time you realize, the day has ended. And then they struggle with prioritization. They don't know which of the tasks in the day is more important to start with. So sometimes they end up not doing anything because they don't know which one to start and end with. And then they stop in processes. They forget steps and processes, as we said, and then they feel overwhelmed when they multitask. They cannot do 2 or more things at a go. So if you have a worker at let's say a coffee shop who serves customers, that's what they do. But then a boss will come and say, "Oh, can you please give me the account for yesterday?" They can't do both. So it's either they go to the account and forget about the customers, or stick to the customers and later do the accounts for you. Okay, Ms. Amma, kindly move on. Okay, so we move to one common trait, which is masking and camouflaging. So they mimic social behaviors. As they started growing as little and they did not get diagnosed, some might not even know. So they themselves within them see that this is a social norm that we have to follow. So they try to mimic. Girls, for instance, will try to mimic the way you have to walk, the way you have to swing your arms and all. And then at the end of the day, it becomes part of them. But internally, that's not them. It's something, it's like putting on a show. They get back to their safe space, they break down, they become burnout, and everything comes out like that. So they learn to mask these traits to fit in the society. And then they suppress their stimming by fidgeting or pacing, amongst other things. So some will steam, but then because in our society is not as, we see it as not normal. Some will see it, excuse me to say, as weird. Nobody will want to be considered as weird. So when the steaming comes, they find nice and subtle way of doing it. So if you're standing with them, they'll just pace about little by little just to calm down when they are overwhelmed. Okay, but then let's know that the masking can be very mentally draining for them. So if you're an autistic adult, after masking and you get home, you feel mentally and emotionally drained. That you might want to take a rest for the whole day, so tired that you can't really explain why you are tired. You didn't really do a heavy job in the day, but then you are very tired. Yeah. They are moving to another common trait, which is emotional regulation. Autistic adults feel emotions more intensely than any other person does. So they find it hard to express what they are feeling. So they encounter meltdowns or shutdowns. And then when the input becomes too much for them. So the meltdowns can be an overreaction. If it's something little, probably you did something that's, yes, you have to be angry, but then the anger that comes, you see that it's very excessive and you don't know why, because they've taken in so much. So that is the opportunity for them to bring everything out and feel free. And then some will shut down. It's hard for them to regulate. So some will shut down, as I explained before. Some will shut down. They stare blankly, they withdraw. Some will just dissociate from whatever moments they are in for a while and then come back and continue. Okay. And then another common trait is that there's a co-occurring condition. Mr. Korleson mentioned this. They struggle with conditions like anxiety, and we have ADHD, we have OCD, there's learning differences, and then most of them, not some, suffer gastrointestinal diseases or sleep issues. Ms. Amma, kindly proceed. But before I continue, I would stop and then take 2 or 3 questions before we move. Okay, let's pause on the question and then let's look at some ways. I just thought of adding it to it. Some ways of steaming. Yes, because when we say steaming, most people will not understand. Yes. So some autistic adults will rewatch a scene in a show over and over again. They don't get tired of it. They will watch over and over again for a long period of time before they get tired of it, will not go back and then go to another one. And then chewing. Some will chew lightly on stuff. Sometimes their fingernails. You see them chew on it little by little. Sometimes some would chew on the pen covers, for instance. Not everybody, but some. Remember, it's a spectrum. And then we have the arm and hand flapping. You have some who do it visibly, like maybe you're tired of the arm, but it's something that cannot be controlled. It comes by themselves. And then we have squinting of the eye, like when the lights emitting are so high for them, they squint their eyes. And then dance around. Some really love music a lot. And then twirling, humming, fidgeting. We see them playing around with any little thing they touch, the bag, their hair, if it's a woman, and all that. And then walking on tiptoes, jumping. We have repeating words or phrases, listening to music on repeat. So when you go to their playlist, it's a set of music like 3, 4, or 5, and that's it. And they listen to it over and over and over and over again. They don't get tired. Rocking and then touching textures repeatedly. That suits them, suiting to them. All right, so I'll pause here for any questions, please, before we proceed.
Ms. Gifty.
Before we move to the challenges. Yes.
Okay, so we wanted you to finish. Yes, please, so that once we are done.
So when we finish.
Yes, please.
And
so please, once again.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. My next
So let's move to the challenge. Okay, so autistic adults face lots of challenges stemming from social expectations. In our society, you are expected to behave in certain ways and follow certain norms. Like when you're talking to somebody, you have to look them in their eyes or in their face. So lack of support, and then years of being undiagnosed and misunderstood. Yes. So one challenge is misunderstanding and stigma. So society often expects adults to behave in a certain way, as I said. That is socially acceptable. So because they didn't fit in the norms, then they are considered as rude, antisocial. They are odd. They are weird. They are difficult. They are lazy. Especially when autistic adults become so overwhelmed that they had to go in, withdraw a little, and then a reboot. And there was no one to do anything. Oh, this person is very lazy. Yes. Now we move to employment struggles. Mr. Korleson did us the honors of explaining a little more on that, which is the high unemployment and then underemployment. They struggle in navigating interviews, as he said, because of a whole list of interview questions. Most struggle to bring out speech. They can communicate, yes, but then to communicate at length. I remember I read somewhere from someone's experience that she went for an interview where the they were mowing the lawn. Somebody was working, doing some carpentry work. So even the environment was very, they can soak in sound actually. Some of us were able to, the neurotypicals are able to sort out the environment and pick the ones that are dominant to them and live. But then the autistic mind soaks in everything. Whatever sound that is going on, the radio, the TV, the car, any sound in the environment is in their brain. They can't see it. So as she sat for the interview, she was struggling to maintain eye contact. She has to try and maintain eye contact that is following social norms. And then her mind was wandering about listening to the mowing and the sounds coming from the carpentry work. So at the end of the day, she couldn't produce any information that could help her to be taken, but then she was fully qualified, fully experienced. And then to her, she could have really performed, which can be very true. And then also they struggle in adapting to unstructured environments. They need structure, as I said, a structure that is predictable, that's a structure like a school setting. Oh, in the morning we go for an assembly, and then they have a timetable. You teach English, that kind of a routine, break time, all that helps them navigate through their day very well. And then managing social dynamics, like when it comes to social functions, how they are supposed to act, how they are supposed to communicate, the norms as mentioned earlier. So at the end of the day, as I said in the employment one, highly skilled or intelligent individuals may be overlooked because of all these kind of differences. And then we can come to the third one, which is mental health issues. Many of them struggle to find therapists who understand them. Mr. Korleson mentioned. So they have high rates of anxiety, they have high rates of depression, PTSDs, and burnout. It results from years of masking. You know, that's not their real self. They just cover up to fit into society. So at the end of the day, you see them get lots of anxiety, the fear of not being accepted. I'm the confused being and all. Why can't I do this freely when this comes to others freely? Why can't I do it? I have to practice. I have to let my brain rehearse how I'm going to talk and do the expression together with it, like that. And then repeated experience of rejection or misunderstanding can cause these kind of mental health issues, that anxiety and depressions, as mentioned earlier. Ms. Sama, kindly move on for me. So I think the next one is difficulty in assessing support. Mr. Korleson, thank you so much. He spoke really at length on that. The long waiting list, the duration of diagnosis, and even the cost involved. So at the end of the day, they might get misdiagnosed because we don't have professional doctors who are trained for that kind of work. So most of them are diagnosed as depression. Most of them are diagnosed as PTSD and not autism. But then to themselves, you see that whatever diagnosis they've given, their traits are not fitting, which gets them very confused. And then we can look at availability of adult support groups. There's limited of it. That's why there's now advocacy for that, their awareness, the acceptance, and then more advocacy. And then seeking for financial help. I realized when Mr. Korleson was trying to answer the question asked before on how to assess help. Yes, it's one tough question at hand now, which we are all praying and advocating that we get the necessary support for them. And then we can talk of masking and burnout. Results regression in skills. So This is not the idea. Brain will use a lot of energy to mask their traits, to cover up and fit in. So at the end of the day, they burn out. Their burnout might even let them lose certain skills that they could do. Just simple tasks like buttoning, like tying of a shoelace. They just forget how to do it for some time till they get back on it. And then they can withdraw from life and even have health problems. And then lastly, we have isolation and loneliness. So social exhaustions, rejection, or lack of community contributes to loneliness and low self-worth because they don't get the necessary acceptance they need. That's why they have to pretend to fit in. Let's move on. But before we move on, I'd like to say that they are not failed versions of the neurotypical people, read somewhere. So they are whole, they are valid individuals with unique ways of experiencing the world. Their mind is not like us. They experience the world in different ways that we try and see from their lens is very beautiful. And we are seeing. Okay, so amidst the challenges, amidst all that, they have strengths and abilities. They are superpower. Okay, so research has shifted towards recognizing unique strengths and positive abilities of autistic individuals. So we are moving beyond the perspective that they have deficit. Okay, they have strength, super strength, actually, as autistic adults. So we are going to look at their strength, and then I try to make it as simple as and practical as possible, how it's practical in workplaces and then in the social life. So say relationship, the family, the romantic, and then friendship. Okay, so one strength is problem solving skills. They have problem solving skills. They're able to approach problems from unique angles. So when you take a neurotypical person, as in a person who is not autistic, things that you would see and overlook, an autistic person would see and point it out to you. So it brings out innovation. We can look at one person called Temple Grandin. Yeah, she is an animal scientist. She holds a PhD. According to research, she spoke at 3.5 years. She has a unique ability to use to see problems in 3D. And then she was able to develop and design livestock facility for animals, okay, which is now used globally for productivity in the farming industry. And then her popular statement is that I think pictures and then words are like second language to me. Okay, we are moving to creativity and originality. At work, an autistic adult brings unique ideas to projects, invent solutions, and others overlook. That's the neurotypicals overlook. Okay, so they are able to focus. They are really, really able to focus and concentrate deeply on tasks of interest. So they give you quality. Since they have that repetitive behavior and then defocus for things, they are able to have the quality, give you quality work. They are precise in their work. They have keen eyes for details when it comes to their work. And then they're able to find ways of analyzing and getting things in accuracy. You will not have in-betweens. Yes. Now we move to deep passion for interest. They become experts in the niche field. That is passion for specialized interest. There's a saying that goes that when an autistic person is passionate about something, they don't just learn it, they live it. So I researched and I found a fashion designer who had interest in historical clothing. Okay, so her interest made her delve more into it, that she had to design more historical clothing, and now she's able to open up her own firm, her own collections and clothing accessories that others are purchasing, which has served as a livelihood for her. And then when it comes to their deep fashion for interest in relationships, they teach and host discussions on topics of interest. So they're able to engage their friends, their family on topics that interest them, and they'll give you details of everything that will really enlighten you. Things that you knew you had no idea of if they are given a chance. Ms. Amma, let's move on. Okay, the fourth one, Ms. Amma.
Please, I was drawing your attention that I had moved to the next slide. The next slide.
You are there. Thank you. Say again. Okay. They have strong ethical standards. So at work, they are honest, they are principled, they are dependable, and normally trusted in leadership roles. They don't compromise their integrity in any way. If that is the truth, that is the truth. You have them lie for you, not now and not forever. They value transparency. And then in teamwork, they'll be able to stand up for anyone who is being bullied or who is not treated well. And then when it comes to relationships, they are trusted and fair in group settings. If in a romantic relationship, they maintain emotional safety to be by being loyal and then honest. Okay. Then we move to attention to detail. That is one superpower of them. They have attention to details. So they have spot on in their work. If it's editing work, they do it and do it well. So if it's graphic designing, you see them combine colors that are so catchy that can market your business really well. And then when it comes to relationships, they can help organize events with precise timing, setup, decor. In a romantic relationship, they remember small things and that matters to you, that you might even forget. If they know that you like this kind of a cup, this is the way you like your coffee, that's how they're going to do it for you. And then there's no in between. Precise. We can have one person, which we all know, Sir Isaac Newton, who was believed to be autistic, one of the greatest scientists. Yeah, let's move on. We have memory and knowledge as one superpower. Memory and knowledge, one of their superpowers. So at work, they retain procedures and specialized knowledge with ease. They don't struggle. So if you need them to keep procedures in mind, they're able to do that for you. They won't forget. They stick to it, since they also thrive on routine. And then in relationships, they recall shared memories, conversations, and become your to-go person for facts or trivia in friends cycle. So they have lots of information. Their brain works well. Although it's a spectrum, yes, some might not be at the highest level. It's just in between like that. But then you can trust them on that. We have emotional sensitivity as their superpower. So when it comes to the workplace, you have them pick up co-workers' moods and offer support or space when they are needed. Unlike neurotypicals, the moment you see a co-worker withdrawn or probably not responding to you at a point, hey, they're able to read in between your emotions and realize that, oh, at this point, this person needs space, let me give it. And they won't have any, let's say that. And then when it comes to relationships, they notice unspoken emotions and respond to it. You don't have to even communicate verbally. Be able to see through lots of things. Okay, Ms. Amma, let's move on. We can come to one superpower, which is enhanced sensory perception. They have sharp hearing. When we say sensory, as I explained before, it has to do with the senses. Their hearing, their taste, their sight. Yes. So they have sharp hearing. So as a sound engineer, they can identify subtle pitch or tone flaws that others don't. And then when it comes to scent, as a chocolate factory worker, they can identify smell and texture changes early before you can do mass productions. So which is an advantage to the company. And then in relationships, they detect emotional shifts through your tone, the body language as a partner. And then they choose quiet venues for sensitive partners. And as mothers, they are really known as great mothers, according to research, because they're able to create calm environments for their kids by using soft light and cozy textures. They know when a child needs light sensory environment, so they're able to create all that because they have experienced sensory overload as well. Okay, and then we come to the last one, dedication and reliability. At work, they are very consistent in work ethics. They are punctual, they are focused. You can rely on them. So sometimes others might think, but that's them. That's how they are. That's how they are wired. There's no in between. If this is this, I have to do this. This is the truth, this is the honest way. That's where they are going. They are not going to sway from it. And when it comes to relationships, they keep appointments. They do follow-ups. They are reliable in plans and keeps promises. So as I said, if it's a party that you tell them, this party, we are having a party, is at 6. Be in your mind that at 6, they are there. Not like Ghana time as popularly said. Okay, I'm gonna kindly move on. Okay, so I was able to research some examples of autistic adults who had super strength and had many. There are many of them that if I say I'm going to list, it's going to be so overwhelming. Yes, so we have one Satoshi Tajiri. He's the creator of Pokemon. He possesses intense focus and attention for details. He had interest in insects, so through that, he was able to create that game. So most children really love that game. I know most parents too must have heard Pokemon. Yes. And then we come to Temple Grandin, as I mentioned before. He's a world-renowned autistic scientist who brought a new way of handling livestock systems using her unique ability to visualize in 3D. And then we come to Anthony Hopkins. He's an Oscar-winning actor and is known for his honesty and principled lifestyle, which he was later diagnosed in life as autistic. So that's an example of strong ethical standards. He had it. It was there. There was no in between. He was not pretending. So before he didn't know, that thing was with him until later he was diagnosed with autism. And then we can have Sir Isaac Newton, one of the greatest scientists mind in history, who worked alone and obsessively to transform science in physics and in math. That's one example of our creativity and originality. And then we can come to Daniel Tammet. He has passion for numbers and languages. He once recited the number pi to that the gate and speaks over 10 languages, many of which he taught himself. Many of the languages, he learned it by himself without anyone's help. And then we come to Stephen Wilshire. He's a British autistic artist He can draw an entire city landscape from memory after just one helicopter ride. Ms. Amma, please move on. This caught my attention in my research this week. That is Kanye Yachukwu. He's a 15-year-old boy in Nigeria. He's autistic. Just like, is it 3 or 4 days ago? Yes, he drew the largest art canvas, which measures at 12,303 square meters on the ground. Yes, that's one beautiful autistic mind. Amma, let's move on, please. So we are moving to diagnosis and self-identification. So we look at the formal diagnosis. So the diagnostic process is normally conducted by a psychologist, psychiatrist, or a neurologist. Okay. So why then should you go, or when should you go for diagnosis? At what time, or as an individual, why would you look at going for diagnosis? And when you have a long life sense of being different, all through your life, you felt like you are very different from your peers. You felt odd and weird most of the time, as we unpopularly describe, which is not. Yeah. And then, you have social and then emotional and occupational struggles. You struggle with social meetings. When it comes to the workplace, you struggle a lot, especially when it comes to sensorial issues. The lightning, the sounds, and all combined, it burns you out. And also, when you are seeking for clarity or validation, and when you want to assess accommodation. When you say accommodation, when you want changes in the environment so that you can thrive well, then you have to go for diagnosis. Okay. So we are looking at benefits of formal diagnosis. Amma, don't go. Okay, thank you. So if you go for formal diagnosis, you get a chance to have access to workplace or academic accommodations. So when we say accommodations, as mentioned before, if you go for your diagnosis and truly you're an adult with autism, you can take in your letter and then get the chance to have certain things in your workplace that can help you thrive, like noise counseling headphones if you are very sensitive to sounds in your environment. And then if you need a quiet space to work, or you would like to work in Unfortunately, Ghana, all those laws doesn't really work, but we are hoping it does. And then if you need accommodations like adjustable lighting, or if you need permission to wear sunglasses when indoors. Because if not, and you don't bring a formal one and you go and do all these things, you'll be labeled as unserious. You cannot be doing that at your workplace. And then another benefit is that you get better self-understanding and reduce self-blame. Because you having the confusion in life, you having that sense of being different, after being diagnosed and you know that, oh, I'm autistic, I'm sure all the confusions you've had will calm down. You better understand, you self-understand, oh, this is how I am. You can get to research more on that and learn how to live life comfortably the way you are. And then you can get tailored mental health support. Can give you the mental health support that you need to manage around depression and anxiety if you've developed any of them. Okay. And then we can have entry into support communities and networks. So after diagnosis, be able to bring your attention to other communities that can support you to thrive in your community, your work, and all. But then in the formal diagnosis, there are barriers. Mr. Korleson mentioned quite a few, but I'll still touch on it, but not stay on it too much. We have cost and accessibility of professional evaluation. As mentioned, if we don't have the enough trained health professionals to make diagnosis. So sometimes an autistic adult will go and then they are misdiagnosed, and then they come back and then whatever that they say they have, sometimes mostly they are diagnosed with depression or any other mental health issues. And then you see that this thing that they are saying, the signs that I have or whatever I'm feeling is not it. So they are always in the state of confusion. And then the cost, as based on that, dear gentleman mentioned, the cost of it is very high. Because after diagnosis, you have to get a range of professionals to assist you thrive. And then we have lack of autism specialists for adults, as said. In the beginning, it was just researched in GS children. Adults were not classified. So specialists for autistic adults are not enough. It's just one that I was able to search to find out who is not here in Ghana. And then also misdiagnosis, as mentioned earlier. You are misdiagnosed as having anxiety or bipolar or sometimes OCD and all. And then we have masking and camouflaging traits to fit social expectations. So at the length of your growth or your life, you've learned to mask your traits. So when you go for diagnosis, they are able to capture everything that will classify you as an autistic adult. So then at the end of the day, as mentioned earlier, you get misdiagnosed. Okay, Mama, let's move on. Okay, so in the midst of having assessing diagnosis and support, which is very expensive, we have something we can do called self-identification. So not everyone has the means or desire to pursue a formal diagnosis. And so self-identification is also valid and a path for many because it's recognized by many-led women autistic organizations. So there's also ways that can help you diagnose yourself. Yes. And how do you do that? First, you have to recognize the need for clarity. So you can do questions such as, have I always felt different? Have I always felt different socially or emotionally? Do I relate deeply to autistic people? Whatever signs and symptoms mentioned for neurodivergence, does it sync with you? Okay, and also, has my child or a family member been diagnosed or currently diagnosed? If so, then you also have to try and diagnose. So, because one of the factors or that contributes to one getting autism is genetics. So if your child is diagnosed, then we recommend that you also seek for diagnosis. Okay. And then you can research and self-educate. You can read books. You read books. I've given a few recommendations. We have Divergent Minds by, hold on. Okay. Divergent Mind by Genara, Unmasking Autism by Devon, Fall 7 times and Stand Up 8 times by Naoki Hagashida. He also did The Reason Why I Jump. He's an autistic adult. When he wrote the book, I think he was in his early 20s. Yes. And actually, Naoki, for instance, does not have speech, so he communicates through grid. They used to communicate. So that's what he used and wrote everything that he feels in his book. So reading that will get you enlightened. You can also visit websites, blogs, and YouTubes that's legit to help you self-identify. And then you can take screening tests. You can take screening tests. We have tools that you can use to help you, like autistic burnout questionnaire, for instance, can help you. And then we can have you reflect on your experiences and journal them. In your reflection, you can reflect on your struggles with sensorial issues growing up, how if you had any issues with communication or routine changes or relationships. You can also reflect on whether you have been masking or performing socially most of your life, whether you have been really pretending, and whatever show you're putting on is not yourself. And also you can also reflect on whether you have any special interest or passion that you dive deeply into. Remember, we said they have a deep interest, people on a spectrum. And then also the last I can say that whether you feel comfortable alone or in structured settings. So in all these reflections, you make sure you journal all of them. And if all that is mentioned above, you follow through and then you feel, oh, I think I'm autistic, you can decide on how you want to use the knowledge. After that, you can decide to go for formal or just keep it as that, because there are many individuals who has done self-identification. And it's personal. You can decide to keep it and just guide you for self-care and reduce your burnout. Since now you get to know that, oh, this is how, this is me. So you see how best to navigate in your life now. Or you can decide to disclose it to your trusted friends or family, and so that they can support you in your new self found. Okay. So we are looking at importance of accepting over awareness. So awareness informs, but accepting transforms. Awareness informs, accepting transforms. Accept, when you accept, you go further by you respect and you value the person with autism as they are. You won't try to change them. You rather try to make accommodations in the environment to help them thrive, and then work through their needs. And then also acceptance reduces stigma and shame. Most people have hidden in the dark. They've hid themselves. As we said, they mask and try to fit in. That's not how they are, because of how the society will see them, how they will feel around them. So they had to what? Mask and pretend as if, oh, we are all the same, but we are not. You are also wired differently and in a unique way. So acceptance reduces the stigma that we have, and then allow them to feel safe being themselves without any pressure or to mask. So if they are with in a social setting and they feel like, oh, I feel like steaming, they just do it freely and easily just to calm their nerves and then continue with their activities. So another importance is that acceptance prioritizes their voices, their choices, and leadership in discussion about autism. I was very happy when Mr. Korleson mentioned that when it comes to advocacy, we don't speak for them. We allow them be the voice. We include them in the advocacy because they understand themselves better to be able to tell you how they feel and how we can help. Because not all of them are nonverbal. Some really speak. We have public speakers who are on a spectrum as well. And then we can move to acceptance shifts the narrative from deficit to difference. So you're not going to see them as having a flaw, but then there is a natural variation in the brain. So we all are not thinking the same. They have different way of seeing the world. One professor I know said that it's not a disability, but then they are differently abled, which I really loved that statement. So you focus on their strength, their needs, and not their challenges as individuals. So instead of asking how you can fix a behavior, especially when you meet an autistic person acting in a way that you don't understand. So a typical example You would go asking how you can fix the behavior. Acceptance will ask, what is the person trying to communicate to us and how can we support? Okay, so then how do we support it? I saw this and I loved it. It said, I will support autism here, there. I will support autism everywhere. How do we do that? So we can do that by first educating ourselves, as we are doing now, trying to get more information on it, trying to listen to their voice and how best we can help them. And then we can advocate. We can be positive. We can be positive role models for our children, especially our children in school going ages. Most of them don't know how to mingle with them. Most of them bully them, especially when you go to the JHS, the high school levels, they bully them a lot. So if you're able to be role models for our kids, I'm sure they will transfer it to them in school and wherever they meet them, and their life will be quite easier to live. And then employment support such as flexible working hours, quieter space, clear communication and coaching for them will also be helpful. And then we can talk of giving them social skills training. We also can also do that, get the necessary social skills that can help us communicate with them very easily. And then we can also provide them with therapy and counseling in school, in their workplace, wherever stage they get in life, they get that support. And then we can support them with independent living skills. We don't see them as disabled. Their mind cannot take in certain trainings. They can do life and household chores. They can do all that, just that they will need different ways of being taught. So it doesn't mean that they cannot live independently. They can, but you find structured way of teaching them that will work with them. Miss Amma, let's move on. Okay, Miss Amma, so we are moving to questions and answers, which now you said will come to the later part of it. So I loved this one. So it says, I promise to teach my babies to love your babies. So as I said, we can be role models. We teach our children to love and accept them just the way they are and not try to change them, not see them as weird or odd. Okay. Ms. Amma, thank you. And thank you, everybody. So now the floor is open for questions and any contributions.
That was Ms Gifty Okyere taking us through autism in adults. Thank you very much, Mr. Korleson and Ms Gifty Okyere once again. Please, questions and contributions are welcomed. And so we have a couple of questions, and this one is from Mr. Namwa Boating. He's asking, why is ABA so expensive? What can the average Ghanaian with a neurodivergent child do to help their own child? Can there be free training for caregivers to help?
Oh, yes, Amma. Just as we are doing now, it's a form of training as well. And then you connect, you connect with other parents, you connect with institutions. We give training, free trainings once in a while. I'm sure Mr. Korleson also with his institution does same. So I think you have to first find out how you can access all those platforms. And then there's a way you can also help yourself by researching and educating you yourself. Now the internet is free for all. You can research and fish out so many ways of assisting your child. Luckily, we have YouTube also available. It gives us lots of information, practical ones as that.
Thank you.
I don't know if Mr. Korleson would like to ask you.
Okay, that's very true. That's very true. Maybe I would like to address the issue as to why AB is very expensive. With
Please do.
that, I can't tell much. It could be because of the source. You know, ABA is an
Yeah.
American intervention, and that could be one of the main reasons because of the market value placed on it. Trying to convert the dollar to cedis, then you should know you want to be a big person in Ghana. These could be some of the reasons, and it's very expensive to be trained. Currently, I have a worker who is taking one of the IBCC something, and it's about $300. Convert $300 to this, and that certificate should last for only about 2 years or 3 years. After you need to take another certification. So, the certifications attached to it is very expensive.
All right, Mr. Korleson and Ms. Gifty, thank you very much for your responses to the question. Please, any other questions, contributions?
Before since we are waiting for questions to come, I would like to add like two more to it. You know, the ABA is not just a 1 day contact hours or just a few contact hours for the child. It takes long periods of contact hours in the week for you to handle the child. Okay, that makes it very expensive. And also, you draw plans that is just for that one child. It's not for different customized plan for the individual. So all those things contribute. And then the resources, for instance, even sourcing resources for that is very expensive as well. So all those are contributions to that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Okyere. And we have another question from Sir Jones. He's asking, how can an adult differentiate signs of autism from OCD? Is any one of you can take, Mr. Korleson or Ms. Gifty? Thank you. Ms. Gifty, please, would you like to take that for us?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, autism is a disorder of the brain, a condition of the brain, so which it affects social skills. It has sensorial issues and then communication. But then when it comes to OCD, it's a mental disorder as well. But then the person has like anxiety or over something. So it makes them have repeated behaviors, like you want to wash your hands over and over and again due to fear of getting contaminated or something. Yeah. That's how I can contribute to it.
Right,
Yes, please. And sorry, just to add to it, another thing too, autism has its onset during the childhood stage, and OCD should have this it's an adolescent or an adulthood symptom of mental disorder. So just as Ms. Gifty said, they'll just try maxing it, and one day it tries to surface out. So it's a childhood disorder. That's with autism. Then with the OCD, an adulthood disorder. That's just to add to what Ms. Gifty said.
Very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Korleson, as well as Ms. Gifty, for the response. I would also like to ask, with what Ms. Gifty mentioned as autistic adults being sensitive to sounds, What's the difference between this, the symptoms, and then misophonia, which is also a trigger, people who are triggered by certain sounds, some specific sounds, like chewing, more like a number of things or symptoms, or you mentioned the name, or you had the esteeming. It seems to have some common symptoms with the misophonia. Is there any relation, please?
I would say what I remember about this is that it's okay on its own. So it also shows up in people with autism. So that's one of the range of disorders that they can get. Yeah, so it can also happen with any other person who is not autistic. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Korleson, would you like to add anything said? Please, would you like to add anything regarding the question asked?
No, with this, no, please.
All right, thank you very much. And so we have the
I'm okay
next
with what
question,
you said. Yeah.
possible to be our last question. Can an autistic child be trained in the mainstream classroom? Can an autistic child be trained in the mainstream classroom?
Yes, Ms Gifty, they can. However, it's expedient for us to know that we have levels of autism. We have the level 1, they require some level of support. We have the level 2, which requires substantial support. Then we have level 3, which require more substantial support. So depending on the level of autism or the level at which you are, that is when you could be put to the mainstream school. Yes. However, you could find people on level 1, level 2 in the mainstream school, but people with high support system, people with the high severity, sometimes you find them in these institutional maybe care centers. You find them at these therapy centers. Yes, not that they cannot be brought to the mainstream school, but mainly because they've not gained the functional behavior skills, the basic ones, functional communication. So we have to put them, no, we have to put them, sorry, they have to be in these institutions, not to mention the names like arts and other centers. But people with level 1, level 2 could be trained in the mainstream school. However, training them in the mainstream school, you need to accommodate it. So like ABA therapy, we value one-on-one. So even in the mainstream school, we ask for accommodations like pull-out sessions where we could, even in the school, we could take them out from the class for 2 hours. We build certain skill, we come to the class, then we generalize it. So it can, depending on the severity of your symptom. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Korleson, for your response. And we have Ms. Gifty, please, would you like to add up?
Oh yeah, I think that's all. That's what Mr. Korleson has said is quite enlightening. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
then
so
I'll just add up that he talking of the pull-out, and we do that. And then there are some that their supports go as far as having a facilitator, having a therapist go with them to school to help them navigate through the day in the school. So in the course of the day, they pull out and then still continue the day with them, like to the washroom, helping them move to the washroom, and then how to helping them settle in class, meal times, and all till they've gotten around the environment and comfortable.
Very
Yeah,
true. Very
that's
true.
what I can add.
okay, thank you very much. And to our last question, in Ghana, it is believed that autism is spiritually caused. How true is this?
These are cultural misconceptions. Yes, these are cultural
Right.
misconceptions. It's okay. Actually, most people believe it, but as I said, these are cultural misconceptions. It's not that true. It's not spiritually caused. Most people believe that because of how their parents, both parents or maybe one of them, live their life during their childhood stage or adulthood. Just to relate it to an issue, I handled one client at Spintersen, and that was what the nanny, pardon my language, the concerned nanny was telling me that, share, this woman, when she was young, she used to slap the nannies that were taking care of her. So that is why, and one nanny told her that you've been slapping me, so you too you see. So that is why she also gave birth to a child on the spectrum. Honestly, that's not true. It's not spiritually caused. The cause of faith research has not yet identified. However, there are several risk factors that has been leveled out that we could research it out there and look for them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much to our resource persons. Sir Jones says autistics love singing, dancing, and painting. Would you recommend parents to identify these skills and encourage their children grow in this angle?
Oh yes, Summer, we do that all the time, but then I'd like to make a correction. It's the autism is a spectrum, so not all of them love singing, dancing, and painting. Okay, it varies among each individual, and they will recommend that. So, and it's one of the things we try to educate most parents on, that as your child grows, they have specific skills and interests that they possess that you have to harness for them. Just like the young 15-year-old Nigerian boy I showed, Ogechuku. So growing up, I'm sure that his parents saw that, oh, he loved painting, so they helped him and gave him the necessary resources that will help him improve, and then look at where he has gotten now. So yeah, we encourage parents to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Okyere.
Thank
Mr. Korleson, would you like to add up?
I think Ms. Okyere has said it all. Yes, just to add to it, it's true. So what Ms. Okyere said, not all of them. It's an heterogeneous group. Everybody is different. That's why in terms of autism, your prognosis can always be the same. It's a different case altogether. However, trying to identify a skill, if the child should love the singing, we encourage parents to do so, just as Ms. Gifty said, dancing to painting. Yeah, I've had clients that neither of these are in it. They have a different feel altogether. Yes. So provided we are to identify, borrowing the language of Ms. Gifty, then we will encourage parents to do so. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And this has been an initiative by Purple Wellbeing Show and the Ghana Psychological Association Parallel Division. We are also supported by the Great Commission Movement of Ghana, Alpha Wave Consult, and House of EBQ. Briefly, and just to round up, I'd like to share that Ms. Gifty Okyere is an educational psychologist, an educator, and an occupational therapist, whilst Mr. Harry M. Korleson is an applied behavior analysis therapist. He is an applied behavior analysis therapist. Shall we please have your last words? And then we close for the day, or we close for the evening. Thank you. Ms. Okyere, please, let's have your last words.
Okay. Sure. So my last words will be for educators, for especially we have to accommodate and make accommodations when it comes to children on a spectrum, because we've had lots of challenges where most schools would refuse a child on a spectrum admission. Just like a month ago, we had to go around searching for a school for one student, and finally the one who accepted is quite happy about the new, how rapid the student has grown and outgrown certain things and is really coping in his environment. And he loves music very much. And we started learning how to play the keyboard, and he's doing really well just within a month. Yeah. So school owners, teachers, we entreat you to please educate yourself a little more and be very accommodating for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gifty Okyere. Mr. Korleson, shall we have your last words, please?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, People Wellbeing in collaboration with Ghana Psychology Association, and thank you to my co-panelists. Thank you so much. My last words is just we should continue to raise the awareness. There's always been this issue that we raise awareness in April, then in May we all forget, and we start celebrating another thing. It should continue. Please, let's not end it here. I will encourage everyone. Let's call for acceptance. Just as Ms. Gifty said, educators and school owners should be able to massage their policies to accept neurodivergent children, and also policies should be made particularly for children living on the spectrum. Since this is mental ailments, it should be made particularly for them. Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome, Mr. Korleson, Ms. Gifty. And so once again, this has been an initiative by the People Wellbeing Show and the Ghana Psychological Association, Parallel Division. Thank you so much for making time. Next week, I won't be in this seat. We'll have someone else. You'll be hearing a different voice. All the same, thank you so much. See you, God willing, next week, 7 p.m. We really appreciate. Sir Jones, thank you very much as well for helping with the production. Grateful to you, our resource persons. Grateful to you, our participants. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week ahead. Bye.
Bye-bye.